Hey fellow questers, make sure to catch up on the entire Dragon Quest X saga from beginning to end with this convenient playlist located in this card or the description down below. Welcome to Awesome Video Game Memories, where we talk about awesome memories about video games. I'm Ryan, and the game we're going to be talking about today is Dragon Quest X's Beginning Race Stories. As you know, at the start of Dragon Quest X, you get to choose between 5 different races, and I was only able to cover the beginning of the Ogre race story in my original Dragon Quest X version 1 review, but now that I've created 4 extra characters, just take my wallet, Square Enix. I'm going to be going over the rest of the beginning race stories that I wasn't able to cover, and after I cover them, I will replay the Ogre beginning race story from the version 1 review as the last part of the video. And just like I do here on Awesome Video Game Memories, I will be getting into spoilers just as a heads up. The Weddie story begins in Lane Village, where you and Fuser are doing some sword training where he compliments you, but is still determined to win and be called the Shellner. A female Weddie arrives and asks where another Weddie named Arsik went, causing you to be distracted, and Fuser actually kills you on accident! Whoa, Squall and Cypher's training duel at the beginning of Final Fantasy VIII has nothing on this! Later that evening, we're having a funeral for our Weddie character as the priest, Father Raha, says we came to Lane Village when we were young and was picked up by Old Man Balcha and we grew up in the Fia orphanage. Fuser is feeling guilty for killing us on accident as we're sent off into the sea, and Rebecca, the Weddie that called out to us and caused our distraction, cries saying it was her fault. And Satori, the mayor, is wondering who will be the Shellner and is angry at Fuser for taking our life away, and we're pushed out to sea. However, our human spirit inhabits our Weddie body and we get up. Hey everybody, I was just taking this long nap and I was just totally faking it so I could sleep in this nice bed of flowers. And Father Raha says it's a miracle caused by the sea, and Rebecca is glad that we are not dead. And Fuser is flabbergasted and helps bring us back to shore, saying that it feels like someone else has inhabited our body. Nah, it's totally me, guys. Just don't ask me any questions that I don't know the answer to because I totally lost my memory. And Fuser says he'll repay our debt to us soon and leaves. Satori still thinks he's got attitude and is wondering who will be the Shellner. Arsik, the Weddie that Rebecca was talking about, comes dressed in his wedding tuxedo, is glad that our funeral is cancelled, and is looking for shells for his fiancée Keel at the Memorial Beach northwest of the village. We arrive at the Memorial Beach and meet up with Arsik to find some shells. He picks up a peculiar looking shell which he describes like he's being sucked in by its beauty. After Arsik takes the shell, a dark energy comes from the tombstone and Old Man Balcha appears. Balcha says that Arsik shouldn't be at the memorial because the memorial is commemorating a very sad event. So once upon a time, a young man in Lane fell in love with another female Weddie and got married. The man gave the shell to his bride, and the bride went to the sea from the memorial to cleanse herself before the wedding. However, an evil force took the bride and she never came back. The young man was saddened and also killed himself by going into the sea to drown. A number of disasters struck the village and people began to think that the soul of the young Weddie was haunting them. The memorial was created to calm the soul of the young Weddie. Arsik feels if he gets married and becomes happy, the past bride and groom will be happy too. Balcha says that Mayor Satori is calling for both Fuser and us to select a Shellner. If we're selected as a Shellner, we can leave the village to look for our parents, so we head back to Lane Village. Back at Lane Village, Satori isn't happy that Fuser hasn't shown up yet, and after he finally shows up, Satori says a message from the town of Gillette came in, and that the bride, Keel, is going to the inn. And Satori tells us to go to a cave for the Shellner test and bring back the water located in the back of the cave. He gives us a bottle and says the first one to draw water from the back of the cave and put it back into the bottle will be the Shellner. Mayor Satori wants us to bring back the water before it loses its beautiful color, so he wants it back fast, and the first person to do that wins. So the race begins! We get the water from the underground lake ahead of Fuser thanks to plot convenience, but Fuser also gets the water and still declares that he'll win. Back at Lane Village, we give Mayor Satori the water and Fuser arrives late. Mayor Satori is impressed and declares us as the Shellner of Arsik and gives us the first Rura Stone. Fuser accepts defeat and leaves just as Arsik comes to the mayor's house. Arsik shows the mayor the shell, and after that he asks us if we can deliver the shell to his fiancée Keel. Arsik thinks the shell has the happiness of the people inside of it, and then we go back to the inn and pick up Keel. We arrive at the inn to meet Keel as the new Shellner, and she thanks us for making the trip. We give Keel the shell and she feels that Arsik's heart is reflected in it. However, the shell shell emits a dark energy saying it's found its bride. Uh-oh, the shell could be a wedding crasher. And then we're in shock as a huge monster appears and calls Keel his bride. The monster takes Keel away to the memorial so they can get married. And the priest tells us that the groom who lost his bride on the beach a long time ago was turned into a monster, and our duty as a Shellner is to protect the bride. We arrive back at the memorial beach with the monster holding Keel and Fuser and Arsik down on the ground. The monster says he'll live forever with his bride and is about to blast both Arsik and Fuser away. Arsik stands up to fight for his bride, but Fuser tells him to run away. The monster calls Keel Daria, which is the name of his old bride, and says he will not give her away. Just when the monster is about to blast both Arsik and Fuser away, we arrive just in time and the monster notices us as the Shellner and says we'll be a guest to his wedding. After defeating him, the monster vows to destroy everyone, causing a storm, and then we see the light from Ethine village pierce the dark clouds caused by the evil demon lord Nelgel, and the monster turns back into his normal Weddie self named Leg. He apologizes to Keel for trying to make her his bride, and after Arsik tries to take her away from Leg. Leg says his heart was wrapped in darkness and was trying to replace Keel with his deceased Daria. And then Daria's spirit appears and offers her hand to Leg, saying that they both need to go. They embrace and Leg says he'll never leave her side. They both ascend into the heavens and vow to be happy together forever. I now pronounce you spirits, both husband and wife, and you may now kiss the bride in heaven. Old man Balcha picks up the shell and puts it back on the memorial, and Arsik feels like he was used by Leg's grudge. Keel says that because of Arsik, Leg and Daria were able to reunite and vows that she and Arsik will find their happiness together. Fuser is glad that we're able to help, and we go back to Lane Village for the wedding. At Lane Village, both Arsik and Keel are happy that we were able to help them and finally have their wedding, and we go out to find some new shells. Balcha says that we're still the Shellner until their wedding is completed. And the wedding takes place at the waterfall, and Arsik and Keel make their vows. I now pronounce you both husband and wife, and now you can kiss the bride. And then Keel sings a song to conclude the wedding. The wide sea you and I met, the small shells you gave me around shining beautifully in the sunlight. From now on the two will be forever. Even with that hand forever, let's walk with happiness. Yay! Mayor Satori is happy, so we write a book of adventure and he advises us to see Old Man Balcha before we leave on our journey to find our parents. Balcha says he's happy that Arsik and Keel are now married and tells us how he picked us up when we were young and raised us in the orphanage. He takes out the mirror of Ra and we see our original reflection in it. He says we're actually a human and not a Weddie, and he also says he's heard of people who have been transported from their spirits to other bodies, but has no idea how it's happening. Balcha says the light from earlier is the light that emits when the hero awakens, and that we should go to that location by visiting the 5 continents, as he gives us a train pass. Also, Balcha says that we need to get the key emblems as proof of our power that will guide us to the light, and says that we should find a large castle and our parents may have been researchers. So he tells us to go to the town of Gillette, and before we leave Lane Village, Rebecca is said that we're leaving, and we tell Arsik that we're gonna find our parents. And Keel is pretty sure that we'll head back to the village and that we should stop by her parents' house in Gillette. The 3 of them say goodbye and Fuser arrives saying that he's also planning to leave the village. He says he'll find his own path by himself and hopes he'll see us again, thus ending the Weddie story. So the Pukulipo / Poppet story begins with a man driving a wagon in the Pukulit region saying someone or something wasn't so lucky. Our spirit passes by as the man looks at the coffin behind him, and he offers to take us back to our hometown. Then our spirit goes inside the coffin and then we burst out, "I'm alive! I'm alive! I'm a zombie puppet!" And the man totally freaks out as we come back to life. I can't really blame him. So we're in Pukulit village and the man says that we were definitely dead. Our friend Hapal says to Mr. Tiltskin, the wagon driver, that we're definitely alive. Mr. Tiltskin says he found us dead without a heartbeat, so it's impossible for us to be alive. The rest of the Poppets laugh and say that we're the best actor in the village, just waiting on my Oscar nomination. Mr. Tiltskin thinks that our corpse has another soul and takes off, not wanting to ruin the Pukulipo's work of art. So we go to our friend Pulipo's house and he says now that we pulled off the silly stunt, we can go to a city and more funny things will happen. And Pulipo says we won the Grand Prix performance 3 times and we are the funniest guy in the village of Pukulit. Hey, my fake death was great, right? I mean, me just hopping out of that coffin. And Pulipo says it's best we try to find a Rura stone to travel the world to show off our act. Since we don't have any materials, we need to see the mayor, and before we take off, another Pukulipo named Pudding comes in and tells us not to leave because we made a promise to him not to leave. So Pudding cries up a storm and Pukulipo tells us to go to the mayor's house to talk to him about the Rura Stone. We talk to Mayor Pukuli, who's kind of a groovy character, and we tell him about the Rura Stone. So Mayor Pukuli is mad that we lost the Rura Stone and says he's gonna find a potato and has no clue where to find another Rura Stone. However, he suggests we go to Sage Eidos since he may know where to get one, and Sage Eidos is a wise man who apparently knows everything that's going on in the world. So we visit Sage Eidos in his cave and he seals off an evil force from coming out of the ground. After he notices us, Sage Eidos is mad that we snuck into his place like a mouse and says behind the seal in his cave there is a great disaster coming. And then Eidos notices that we're actually in a reincarnated body and has a change of heart. He tells us that we need to overcome great challenges to get the Rura Stone back and says that the foe who has it will be attracted to his magic, and says we need to talk to Pudding again because he'll be the key to solving all the mysteries. So we talk to Pudding and tell him about Sage Eidos. Pudding says that he remembers that we fought a monster in the Valley of Injury that also killed his parents, which also caused them great sadness. We see a flashback of someone telling Pudding that the champion of the village is supposed to make everyone smile and that we're the champion who tried to avenge Pudding's mother and father, and Pudding says that we may have lost the Rura Stone in the Valley of Injuries, and Pudding thinks he's disliked in the village, but Pukulipo comes in with a cake and throws it on the ground saying that Pudding is too much of a crybaby and wants to cheer him up. You didn't really have to throw the cake. So Pudding apologizes and thanks us both as we head off to the Valley of Injury to avenge Pudding's parents as the village champion to get the Rura Stone. So we go to the Valley of Injury and fight a big bad snake and his minions. So after defeating them, the big bad snake comes out and we get a flashback of how we tried to fight the big snake before, which resulted in our death. Mr. Tiltskin comes into the Valley of Injuries under the request of Sage Eidos and finds our dead body along with a notepad called The Secret Story of Pukulipo, which Mr. Tiltskin tosses away. He finds a Rura Stone and says he wants to make a name for himself in the city of Orfair, and then he takes us back to our hometown. Then the light from the center of the world appears just like in the other scenarios and it sends the snake back into its hole. We meet up with Sage Eidos with Mr. Tiltskin, and Eidos says that he gave the wagon a spell to repel the monsters. Sage Eidos gives us back the Rura Stone and we begin talking about the white light that appeared, which Eidos says that the hero has awakened in Lindasia. Eidos says that we escaped death and our destiny is to go to that light. He also says he knows we have a different soul inside of us and summons the Mirror of Ra to show us our human form. Sage Eidos says there have been reports of souls of humans who died and have entered the souls of other dead people. Eidos says he's going on a journey to find out about the hero and that Mr. Tiltskin should give us a rail pass even though he stole money from our dead body. Over my dead body! Wait. And Sage Eidos creates a duplicate of himself just in case anyone needs him. Shadow Clone Jutsu! So Sage Eidos says that our destiny will guide us on finding why we came back to life, and that we should visit the 5 continents. Mr. Tiltskin says he's going to start a new business in the town of Orfair and offers to bring Pudding back to Puklet. And Pudding says that we'll be going to Lindasia to be the best actor ever. 5 motion picture deal, baby! Back at Puklet, Mayor Pukle does a dance and sings about our feats and Rura Stones. Pudding knows now that we're not the same person who was revived, but still believes in us as we helped him out. Regardless, Mayor Pukle still refers to us as the champion of the village who makes everybody smile and we write an adventure book. Mayor Pukle says that we should get the key emblems from all parts of the world and Pudding says he'll be at Orfair. And as we take off, Pukulipo and Pudding meet us at the front of Puklet Village, and Pukulipo says that comedy isn't for him anymore and will try to master the art of crying just like Pudding does. Oh, you can easily master that by playing any mainline Dragon Quest game with all the emotional parts. And Pukulipo says that both our acting and his crying will rock the theaters of Lindasia, and Pudding says he wants to be someone who brings smiles to everyone's faces just like us. Pukulipo is having second thoughts about doing crying training and we all depart, thus ending the Pukulipo/Poppet beginning story. So the elf story begins in the village of Tuskull with Priestess Hemia telling her servant Noma to calm down a little. And Noma says that we are a young genius who's going to revive a long-awaited ancient spell that nobody has been able to do. And Priestess Hemia summons a leaf to see our fortune and it burns. Foreshadowing? So we're studying the spell, and if we succeed, the entire continent of Altona won't be destroyed. However, some sweat falls from our face and gets onto the spell paper and a dark essence comes out. So we try to Naruto hand seal it away, but the dark force invades our body and kills us. That jutsu didn't work! So a little elf girl named Fira bursts into the room and asks us about studying and comes upon our dead body. She tries to find a heartbeat and freaks out when she finds out that we're actually dead. Then our human spirit comes in and goes into our elf body and we come back from the dead, freaking Fira out again. Boo! Scared you, didn't I? So an elf named Asanagi comes in and complains that Fira is being noisy, and she says she saw us die and come back to life. And Fira says it's like another soul entered our body, and she comedically tries to imitate our death and resurrection. I'm alive, ooh, zombie. So Asanagi says it's time for us to gather leaves, and Fira says to her doll Keki-chan that we're much kinder than Asanagi. However, Asanagi says that he vows to beat us in our graduation exam, and after that Fira leaves. So Kyusuke, an elf with a goatee, talks to an elf named Maz about her third time trying to pass the graduation exam. He offers a special magic medicine that will allow her to memorize everything from the dictionary for 10,000 gold, but gives her a discount at 4,000 gold. We arrive and Kyusuke says that we're the child prodigy who's a fountain of intelligence and we don't need his help at all, so Kyusuke takes his leave. Before the exam, we're talking to another elf who wishes us luck, and Fira arrives saying that she can't remember anything that she studied at all. Our teacher named Izuyanoi arrives and says that the day has finally come, and that the exam will be between us and Asanagi. We all go to the Shrine of Wisdom and Asanagi gives a perfect answer to Toyohoro, the mediator. Asanagi gives us a smug look when he leaves, and Fira leaves as Toyohoro asks us to come up. And our question is, if elves are destined to live in the world and perish together. Our next question is if two suns were rising in the sky. And our last question is if the river of light is holy and evil, and if we think it's holy. If we answer yes to all the questions, Toyohoro is happy and we pass the exam and we should have a drink. We go back to the village of Tuskel and tell teacher Izuyanoi that we passed the trial of knowledge. And back at Tuskel village, Asanagi talks to us about the answers we told Toyohoro and says those weren't our usual answers and we should have taken things more seriously. Hey man, I was just totally winging it. And after that we talk to a little elf girl named Akashi, and she hopes that we get good results from the exam. And Fira arrives and says that she was unable to answer anything from the exam and asks if we'll still be friends even if she doesn't pass the exam, and we assure her that we will. So Asanagi arrives and says that the results of the exam will be announced and we all go outside. So Izuyanoi gathers us all up and announces that we, Asanagi and Kyusuke have passed the test. And both Asanagi and us get Rura stones for passing, and we're told to go to Priestess Himea's mansion. So Kyusuke happily runs off and Fira is disappointed, and we're also told to go to the World Tree after meeting with Priestess Himea. At Lady Himea's mansion, we meet up with her servant Azayumi, and Kyusuke is also in the mansion, and Kyusuke says he's only taking the exam to hang out with Yuchirin and confesses his love for her. She's happy and Kyusuke takes off for the World Tree. We go into Priestess Himea's room and are greeted by Nomu and says that they've always had their eyes on us, and Priestess Himea compliments our wisdom and still doesn't know our role in the world. She says that if we overcome the test of power, then we can go travel the world to find our purpose. After this, we go into the Miso room and talk to Yuchirin, and she says that we're going to the Hill of the World Tree, which all the Shrine Maidens have protected for generations. Yuchirin cleanses us, and now that we're ready to take the test of power. So we arrive at the World Tree to take the test of power and battle the Guardian of the World Tree to show our power and become a full-fledged elf. After defeating the Guardian, he heals us and we pass the test of power. So the Guardian explains that this is the third World Tree and that evil beings have tried to get rid of it in the past for years, and the Shrine Maidens of Tuskel have always stood up to defend the tree, and now that we can go back to Priestess Himea and finally receive our proof of graduation. Kyusuke and Asanagi are asked if they want to take the test, but Kyusuke says that Asanagi can go first. Kyusuke is told that he should take the test of power because he does have a person he wants to protect. Asanagi steps forward and says he'll have a better victory than us, but gets knocked down easily, and however, a dark presence is coming out of the World Tree and the Guardian says that we need to get away or else we're gonna die. And Code, the mediator, dies upon touching it and we all make a break. The light from the center of the world shines like in the previous scenarios and the light is able to repel the dark presence, but the entire World Tree is destroyed. The Guardian uses his power to restore the tree, but at the cost of his own life. And after this we go back to Tuskel. So we go back to Priestess Himea, and Asanagi and Kyusuke are there too. We all sit down and talk, and Priestess Himea says that she's heard the bad news and that the light that saved us was from Lendeja, indicating that the hero has awakened. She says that we face the danger without fear and our courage will be needed for the road ahead. Priestess Himea grants us permission to leave the village as we pursue our destiny and tells Asanagi to inherit our will as we begin a book of adventure which will grant us an audience with the kings of the world. And Kyusuke is happy that he'll work on being a good man for Yuchirin, and Asanagi says he'll also travel the world. And Priestess Himea brings up a scroll that shows our true appearance and knows that we're not the original elf who is researching the spell. She tells us to travel the world to get the key emblems, and Nomu gives us a rail pass. And Priestess Himea wishes us luck and we're told to travel to the Wind City of Aslan. On our way out of Tuskel village, the ghost of the World Tree's guardian waves goodbye to us, thus ending the beginning elf story. So the dwarf story begins in the town of Agrani, where a sudden earthquake rocks the Acronia mine. "Oh no, run!" And Charco, a soldier dwarf, tells Master Hosey that we were inside the mine when it collapsed, and everyone in town gathers around our dead body, and one of the miners says that a strange purple mist was starting to come out of the rocks in the mine. One of the rocks fell off and crushed us, causing our death. So Priestess Malaria arrives and is ready to guide our soul into the next world until our human soul arrives, and the dwarves say that even Father Holta, the previous priest, can't help us now. The other miners aren't happy because they can be next and decide to quit, but then our human soul inhabits the new dwarf body and we come back to life. So everyone is relieved that we're alive, but Master Hosey says it's like another soul came into our body. So Priestess Malaria is relieved and tells Master Hosey that Lunana wants to talk to him. Hosey thinks Lunana is annoying, but she is the daughter of Father Holta. Just like Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball, Hosey pretends that he's feeling sick and tries to get out of it, so he tries to get us to talk to Lunana. Wait, who, me? I just inhabited this body and I have to talk to Lunana? And Hosey asks us a favor to have Lunana never bother him again, and then we go off to see her. In the church, we see Lunana, a human girl with glasses and a cape. Okay, she's really cute, but I won't let that pretty face fool me. So Lunana is surprised that Master Hosey isn't visiting her and is kind of angry at us. She says she really doesn't want to talk with us, but she gives us an order to be her servant. Whoa, I just came back to life and I have to be your servant now? And Lunana says that she's going to be a bigger hero than her father and that we can make a name for ourselves as her servant. Oh boy. So she says that no good gems have come out of the Acronia mine for years, and she knows where to get the good gems. She also says that the lower part of town are too submissive to their masters and won't dig in the special spot. So Lunana says we need to visit Sage Brogan in the mine and try to persuade him to dig for us. If we succeed, we can get Lunana's Rura Stone, so we go off to the mine to meet up with Sage Brogan. Inside the mine, a staff comes talking to us and says that Sage Brogan is here. And Charco says that there was a collapse in the mine, and suddenly a dark mist comes out of the rocks as Sage Brogan seals it off. And Sage Brogan's staff says that the mist that just came out can kill anybody in an instant. We talk about Lunana to Sage Brogan, and his staff says that the place where the Acronia mine is located is the Land of Commandments, and there was an incident a long time ago where greedy dwarves fought each other for precious jewels. So the people of Agrani tried to calm them all down and told everyone not to mine in the Land of Commandments. The staff says that Sage Brogan will try to talk to Lunana about digging in that spot. So apparently the staff is an interpreter for Sage Brogan, as he can barely speak. We go back to the church and Lunana slams the door in our face as we try to come in. Ow! Lunana is pretty angry that Sage Brogan told her not to dig, thus not giving us her Rura Stone, and we're not her servant anymore. Whew, I'm out of here. However, Sage Brogan's staff says that we should still go to the Land of Commandments, and he gives us a Rura Stone. After this, we go to Master Hosey's house. At Master Hosey's house, he's talking to Sage Brogan and says Lunana has a lot of nerve giving attitude to the great Sage Brogan. Hey, Sage Brogan's covered wars, you know. And Sage Brogan's staff says how different Lunana is from her father, and then we go off to the Land of Commandments. We reach the Land of Commandments where two of the guards are knocked out, and one of them gets up and says Lunana took Muche and Bucha, two miners, into the back of the Land of Commandments. We go to the Land of Commandments and see Lunana commanding Muche and Bucha to dig for the precious jewels. Lunana was happy that her fame will be rising up soon and that everyone was buying into a silly superstition about greedy dwarves killing each other for the jewels years ago. Sage Brogan's staff shouts at Lunana that her father wasn't the type of person who gave in to greed, but Lunana says that she's nothing like her father. And she says that the town shouldn't submit to the superstitions and that she'll make everyone acknowledge her. Because one day, Lunana will be Hokage. Hosey tries to convince Muche and Bucha to stop digging, but they both want the jewels for themselves too. Hosey says that this is the place where the great god Yamagami is calming the souls of the greedy, and Hosey has sworn to Yamagami that they will not repeat the history of greed and fighting. Suddenly, a huge dark mist comes out and a huge miasma monster called Mammon appears and knocks out Lunana and Muche and Bucha. Mammon says he will never let anyone get the jewels and begins sucking out the power of everyone in the mine. Sage Brogan urges us to defeat Mammon, and after we defeat it, Hosey says that he can move his body again. Mammon tries to gather more power, and Sage Brogan actually talks to us himself and uses his staff to fend him off. Sage Brogan is hit by Mammon and is knocked out to the ground. Suddenly, the light from Lendeja appears and destroys Mammon, and Lunana angrily storms off, and Muche and Bucha go with her. A mysterious voice begins to speak and says it wasn't able to seal Mammon or save the mine, and the light that appears indicates that the hero has awakened and it helped regain the voice's power. And the voice says that it hopes the mountain god Ipchar will watch over everyone who mines once again, and the voice parts saying that the dwarves should not forget their dreams. Hosey thanks us for saving him and then leaves. Then Sage Brogan says that we need to talk to him at his house, and when we talk to him he knows that we're not a dwarf, but we were originally a human. And Hosey is shocked and brings out the Mirror of Ra, showing us our original self. Sage Brogan figured it out because everyone else in the mine was robbed of their power, but we were able to fight it because our soul is human and not a dwarf. Hosey also tries to ask Brogan more questions, but Brogan and his staff fall asleep. So Hosey gives us a rail pass so we can travel the world. And Hosey says that our original dwarf body was a good guy who didn't complain about mining and wanted to find treasure all over the world. So Sage Brogan's staff wakes up and says we have a mission to fulfill and makes a book of adventure for us. And then we're told to visit the 5 continents and get the key emblems by first visiting the town of Gatara in the northwest. And then the staff says they're also leaving on a journey to find the cause of the hero's awakening, thus ending the dwarf beginning story. So because I started off with an ogre, we start off the ogre story in the village of Langau, where we see this ogre woman named Miley carrying the body of a dead ogre warrior, and as the town is mourning this dead ogre warrior, your spirit inhabits his body and you're brought back to life and everybody's happy, yay! So technically I've kind of died twice in Dragon Quest X already, and I've only been playing the game for less than an hour. And every single race does have a different beginning story, but we're going to cover the ogre one here. So after recovering, you talk to Miley's father, Chief Cliffglen, who looks like Ogre Burt Reynolds. And he's telling us that he dropped one of his Rura stones in a nearby cave, and Rura stones are actually translated as Zoom stones in Dragon Quest XI-S. Unlike other Dragon Quest games, you don't exactly get the Zoom spell for convenience to visit places you've already been to. You actually have to get these things called Rura stones, Rura being the word for Zoom in Japanese. And you can actually set these Rura stones to the beginning of dungeons, and churches and towns, at the beginning of towns. And I do admit it is a bit inconvenient in comparison to the Zoom spell, but you'll get used to it pretty quickly. Like, I usually set one Zoom stone at the town I'm in, and then in front of the next dungeon I'm going to go to. And sadly, all the way through version 1, which is Rise of the 5 Tribes Online, you get a very, very small amount of Rura stones until you play version 2, which is the first expansion, where you get the Mega Rura stone, where you get to travel through all the major locations throughout the game. So once we reach the cave, we see a little ogre girl named Jenya, who actually meets us there, and then she's spying on one of our ogre pals, Zingoff, who's actually unsealing a demon. Oh my god, oh dude, we gotta go back to town now and tell Ogre Burt Reynolds. So we tell Chief Cliffglen the news, and we're accompanied by another ogre named Arnold, who looks a lot like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger of the ogres. And then Zingoff appears back in the village, now possessed by the evil demon Zongalon, and he actually reveals he had a grudge against Arnold for throwing a fight which cost Zingoff his honor. And Zingoff is saying that Arnold has no honor and kidnaps Miley in retaliation. Right, so we chase Zingoff back into the cave and defeat him, and then he's freed of the evil spirit Zongalon, and Zongalon gets sealed away by a mysterious light. And now Zingoff is back to normal and he apologizes for his actions. And so back in the village, we do look in the Mirror of Ra and see our old human self in the reflection. And Ogre Burt Reynolds, aka Chief Cliffglen, tells us that it's time for us to travel the world of Astoltia in order to investigate this mysterious light. And also, Zingoff and Arnold are buddy-buddy again and they go off the train. Alright guys, so that finally ends all of the beginning race stories for Dragon Quest X, and aside from all of the different beginning stories, each of the 5 races does have the same quest, which expands all the way into the expansions. Alright guys, so that ends this episode of awesome video game memories about the Dragon Quest X beginning race stories. Take care! Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to check out these other videos, and also make sure to follow me on social media and check out the official Battle Geek Plus website. Take care.